Hello. The recording you're about to watch is very triggering. If you're likely to be triggered, if you have any sensitivity, I suggest you are very careful with the contents therein. This was recorded on January 28th, 2023, and it is a short version of my life story, not including really all the amazing things that have happened, but a lot of things that may surprise a lot of people. So, without further ado, you may go forth at your own peril. It starts slowly and then escalates. And I maintain a fairly even keel throughout, so I probably won't get you very upset myself. Thank you for coming, and thank you for being my guest on the Joyful Path station. All right. So welcome to this talk, and thanks for coming. As you know, my name is Lydia, and I'm going to talk about what it takes to get through pain and how I have in my life. I started out with a mom who just really took care of me, and she kind of did it all by herself for a while, just because she was the only one there for a while, because my dad was away in the military, and supposedly, it was before car seats or anything. So she just kind of had me, for some reason she had a BMW and she just little sports car, and she just kind of plunked me as a baby right next to her. And I kind of relished the idea of that. I found out later that I actually received my first traumatic brain injury as a baby, and I didn't realize that. So when I was very small, I hit my head really hard, and that is they didn't do anything about it back then. So but I was pretty intense in school, and I sometimes had trouble, but yet I was an extreme perfectionist. And she really she would actually let me every once in a while, just pretty rarely, but every once in a while, maybe once a semester, just take the day off or come home from school and just tell them that I was sick. And she would just let me break down and cry and just let me be and be at peace. It was the best thing she could have done for me, because my life was intense, and it only became more intense shortly after that. And somehow she missed all of this, but I started to become intensely abused by several members of my family, and some community members as well. I was sexually abused on a regular basis, daily, even multiple times a day, for a decade. It just never, ever, ever stopped. And I was also strangely physically abused, and there was this idea, I think, that this is somehow going to help me. If I complained, I remember if I was in water either at a swimming pool or just in the bathtub, and something happened. Like I got soap in my eye once, and I just got told to stop complaining and had my head just pushed beneath the water until I stopped. So there were several what felt like intentional drownings. And I think now they weren't really drownings, they were just making me stronger. I will say I am stronger. I went on, and I was still an extreme perfectionist. The creative in me and the controller in me ran really high and really strong. This is maybe as a result of what happened to me, or maybe it was there in the first place. Either way, it really kept me going, kept me alive. It's also very hard to be the perfectionist that I was. I didn't sleep because I just withstood this abuse for a long, long time. And until whatever hours, and it didn't allow me to do my homework. And yet my parents said to me, why did you get this B? Why isn't it an A? I never heard anything if I got straight A's, just if I didn't. So I kept trying to be better and better. I kept trying to be best. I'd go into school and I would get my homework done right before, right in front of the door, sitting in front of the door, waiting for it to open, get it done as fast as I could. I did a lot of guessing, a lot of extrapolating. I guess I did pretty well at it because I did very well in school. Eventually, I just made myself as busy as possible. I went down in the infamy of the school as taking more classes in the day than there were class slots. It just made it so that I think I couldn't, if I had a failure, it wouldn't be my fault. It was like, oh, I didn't have time. And I think that I sort of continued to be like that till this day. I've been a night owl to this day. Those things that are formative are formative. But I do a lot of my best creating at night. I love early morning. I love late night. And I do love myself. I managed to get enough sleep now. So what happened after a while is I eventually, all of a sudden, one day got in a car accident on my way to my job doing stained glass. I was doing that job. I had a lot of art classes and I had a lot of music. I was really great at both. Part of me wonders if I did this accident on purpose. I didn't realize it at the time. And I also remember up until the accident, but I don't remember the accident itself because I had amnesia for a while. I was going to my job. There was a jug of water on the seat next to me, and they had one of those flip caps. It started to spill. It was March 15th, and I had my hand on the steering wheel and I kept my hand in the same place, but I bent over to try to lift the jug so it stopped spilling. I didn't realize that there was a ridge of ice in front of me on the road because my head was down a little bit. It was back road and there was a residence on my right and a large oak tree with a mailbox in front of it. And apparently my car went over the ridge and flew up into the tree, missing the mailbox. So when the EMT, who was on the road apparently, thankfully 10 minutes behind me, found me, there was an oil stain 4 feet up on the tree. My car was down between the mailbox and the tree. The mailbox was untouched. And there was me, and I was very badly hurt with my head and a lot of my skin and hair on the windshield and the steering wheel in my abdomen. So at that point, I went off to a hospital. They were trying to figure out what was going on in my abdomen. I didn't have, they didn't have a great MRI machine there, and it just was, it didn't show much. There also was a plastic surgeon visiting there who was a really good one and looked at me and just took pity on me and fixed me up right there and then. Grafted from some of my other skin and put my face back together. So I guess I'm really lucky because by the time I got out of there, I didn't really know that anything had happened, but I know that I was gashed right down to my mouth. My mouth was not hurt, which was good because I was and still am a French horn player. But that ended up being the least of their concerns. I ended up on a life flight the next day to save my life because they realized that something was really wrong in my abdomen and they weren't quite sure what. When I got there, it was, they had very little time left to save my life. And it's one of my very strong memory of being intubated, putting the tube down my throat while just having me swallow water and swallow and swallow and swallow. And they were trying to do it as fast as they could. My parents were there at the time and they just told them they just had to get out of the way because they had half an hour to save my life. And they put me, and they wheeled me in and put me under as I was trying to swallow this tube, which was a lot like drowning. And they took out my spleen because it was pulverized, and they took out half my pancreas. I ended up spending the next 3 months in the hospital, and the beginning of that was rough because I couldn't eat or drink. The pancreas takes care of our insulin and also all of our digestive enzymes. And when it's injured, it can be very, very volatile. So mine amylase levels, amylase is kind of like hydrochloric acid, but more so. And it when your levels are that high, it's very bad for the rest of your organs and the rest of you. So we had to get that level down. I couldn't stimulate it with anything. So it was the first year that they had intravenous a substance they called Vital. It had everything you needed, not just water, saline, but also all your vitamins and even lipids, fats. So I got that in there. And eventually I stopped craving being thirsty anymore. And I just laid there for a really long time. I ended up finding out some other allergies that I had. They gave me something called Compazine for nausea, and they kept pumping it into me, and I kept becoming rigid and bending backwards. As this happened, I had some internists just yelling at me to relax and stop being so nervous, and it's not doing anything. I couldn't help what was happening, and it was tearing me apart because I was bending backwards. And finally, a nurse told them that they were idiots, that I was having a dystonic reaction, and pumped me full of Benadryl, and it finally relaxed. They ended up losing their positions as internists at that hospital. The head of surgery yelled at them right in front of me. The thing about that, though that was really hard, I've had this kind of nice place in me for hospitals since that time, because of the care, the real genuine care that I got, and that nurse really sticking up for me and checking on me after, and just making things, really advocating for me, and the doctor advocating for me as well. The doctor is the first person who ever identified me as a medical intuitive, which was very interesting to find that out. Everything that I was telling him and them made them realize that about me. So I started to also learn how to distrust myself. The pancreas ended up abscessing. I got a big bubble of amylase the size of a grapefruit, and I they put me under and took more of my pancreas out. So I have a very small amount of my pancreas left. It took a long time for that to all stabilize. But eventually, it did. They said I would probably not be able to have sort of a normal eating habit. And I think that I have not had necessarily a normal eating habit. I've been a vegetarian for a really long time. And eventually, when I was just performing, I realized that I needed something more. My brain told me I needed something more. So I started taking on fish again, and a little bit of chicken. I've been able to digest that, but I have a lot of digestive enzymes that I have to take with it. And also, my knee was a mess while I was in there, but I was just laying around for 3 months. So eventually I gradually worked up to walking and hiking and skiing, bicycling, and so I guess I built up the muscles around it and didn't realize that there was anything really all that wrong, but apparently there was. And my head, I laid around and it was good enough. It had quite a 40-mile-per-hour blow in running into an oak tree. So aside of my genetic predispensation toward migraines, I had a another traumatic brain injury, but we didn't really deal with that. So I went off with a lot of headaches and just starting to have weirdness and fixing my own leg, not really realizing anything was wrong. About 5 years later, all of a sudden my knee collapsed completely. So I went to the doctor. um, it was my posterior cruciate ligament. So a lot of skiing accidents, people pop their anterior cruciate ligament. The posterior cruciate ligament is behind that. It's kind of hard to mess up, hard to get to. And I also had a lot of medial collateral and lateral collateral instability, all from that car accident. But the posterior cruciate ligament was the one that really needed to be fixed if I was going to walk again. Or I could just wear a big brace for the rest of my life. And so in the meantime, I had just gotten into a big competition, worldwide competition in my instrument. And it was I'd gotten into the finals. So I scheduled the surgery and it got postponed, but I still got it in for before the competition was going to, the final competition was going to happen. And my doctor he had done his doctoral thesis on this surgery. There were only 50 of this surgery that had happened in the United States at the time. And I knew it was going to be a doozy of a surgery, but to me, I'd had all this abdominal surgery and I thought, it was fine. So I did the surgery. It was an 11-hour surgery. When I woke up, I was very sick. I couldn't have Compazine to make me feel better. So I was just very nauseous. And then my leg was the size of Toledo, Ohio. It was so big. And nurse who was working with me said, I have never seen a tourniquet left on that long. And the thing is, just before I went under for that surgery, the anesthesiologist had been switched out. And I remember thinking that I didn't like that anesthesiologist. I liked the anesthesiologist that I talked with before the surgery, but the one that got switched in really seemed arrogant and pompous and foolhardy. And I had just brushed it off. So, and I just brushed off the nurse's comment as well. When I went home, I had this enormous leg for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, the swelling went down. And I had no leg anymore. It had atrophied down to bone. And if you've ever had any time when you've been sick and you've just been a couch potato for 2 weeks, your muscles don't atrophy down to bone. Nobody's muscles atrophy down to bone in that amount of time because they get nutrients and they have nerves. They have motor nerves and sympathetic nerves and sensory nerves that are supposed to keep things going. Well, I didn't have those anymore. All those nerves were gone and their sheaths. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew my leg was gone and I was having more pain than I had in the hospital with my abdominal surgery. So they took me in there and they gave me epidurals and tried to figure out what was wrong. They knew what was wrong. They were just trying to appease me. And they just kept doing all this stuff. Finally, they said, oh, all the nerves are gone. Well, you won't ever be able to walk again. And I had a lawyer who said, this is a huge case. This is enormous. You were about to go to this big competition and they did a surgery on you and now you can't walk. And this is, this is a huge case. And we were talking every day. All of a sudden the lawyer stopped calling. And I went to multiple doctors. They said, no, there's no cure for this. And I called the lawyer and they didn't seem to know who I was. And then they said, oh, yeah, there's no case here. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, everything looks fine. You don't have a case. So I asked them to send my medical records back because I had sent them my original medical records, and all my medical records were altered. The nurse's notes were in there, and they had shown that the tourniquet had been taken off so that some blood could flow after 2 hours, and then 2 hours, and then 2 hours, and then it was left on the rest of the time, meaning there was no blood for like 5 hours. But it had been altered and the signature altered, and it had it on for 2 hours and 2 hours and 2 hours and 2 hours and an hour and a half. So I learned then and there not to send originals. And my family, friends, they all said, you have to sue the doctor, and you have to sue the lawyer. You have to do this. You can't let them get away with this. And my partner at the time was trying to help me commit compassionate suicide, since my life was going to be trash. What I did was say, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm declaring myself well. I don't have a problem. So at that point, I just taught myself how to walk. And I fell and I yelled and I screamed and I cried. I found myself the best physical therapist. And I also found myself at acupuncture. I didn't have any reason to think that acupuncture would work because it was my first experience with it. And that was the first sleep I got in a couple of weeks, because I couldn't sleep through that kind of pain. It was like I was constantly having water dripped on my foot. And I had really long knives that were cold and wet and thick going up through my foot all the way up to my knee. I couldn't turn them off because they weren't there. So, but the acupuncture, I just went right to sleep. So it was beautiful. So between the acupuncture and the physical therapy, which I did all the time, every day, I worked really hard. I grew 3 feet of nerves in a year and a half. So to this day, I have a pretty normal leg. The sensation in my foot is a little bit different than the other one, but it's pretty normal. I can do everything that anybody else can. And I've had a lot of time to think. I think the thing about my early days was I realized that everybody who hurts has been hurt. And I couldn't go on without just forgiving, because I had to forgive myself for all the mistakes I made. Because at first I was just thinking I could do better. And I really couldn't, or I didn't. And it was gone. And that's okay. So there was a lot going on. Really a lot going on. I still have to do that. And to this day, everything is well, my digestion continues to change. And when there's a pandemic that comes along, because I don't really have a great immune system, I really have to be careful. Everyone does, but I really do. And as my head developed, I kind of thought that I would just be having pain, but eventually my vision flipped backwards. I thought my head was over a block over there, and my arm was a block in the other direction, and my legs were in different places. I stopped being able to walk. I lost my words, and that was it. I couldn't talk, and being the perfectionist that I've always been, that was the worst. The doctor had told me about different medications that I could have, and I didn't want to take them because they were supposedly going to make my speech a little harder and slower. And I said, no, not that. I prided myself on being able to speak. Well, I'm on that medication now, and I'm able to speak because of it. In fact, I'm on 3 medications for my head now. I'm going to try to get down to 1. I give myself a shot once a month, and hopefully I'm going to get down to just that shot, because the other 2 do have some side effects. And the thing is, I just want to speak because I want to communicate with people and tell them about the fact that we can get to the other side. And one of the things that I did to get to the other side, to even get to the point where I had a leg to fix, was to realize that I had compassion for everything. When I first, it's not like I've always been happy. I cried on the streets. I was a mess when I first got done with my childhood and after that accident. But I realized that I was so compassionate for everything. And I needed to be compassionate for myself. And I needed to be compassionate for those who were doing the hurting, and forgive or else I was going to bring this sadness and this hurt and bring it around to others, just like I was seeing happening around me. I didn't want to do that. And through my compassion and my forgiveness, not everyone who's hurt me is even alive anymore, but there is someone who is, and who has been able to change and heal. And grow and do a lot of good in the world. A lot of good. But really, I did it for me. So there's a lot of healing that we can do. And it's inside us. So I'm going to open up and see if anyone has any questions, any comments.
Again, Lydia, your story is just incredible, mind-blowing, phenomenal. But all week I've been talking about the innate wisdom in our body being's capacity for healing when we don't get in the way and let these other things really hold us back from things that are impossible, that we're capable of, really. It's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you for that, Wendy. It's true. We do have an innate ability to heal. We really do. Matt, go ahead.
So I quite often am inspired and blown away by people and their miracles that they are. Like we've got some amazing people in this Zoom chat today. Like you've got pure brilliance from the other two ladies, but when I hear your full story about what you've been through and the difficult journey that you've had in terms of not just what you've gone through, but then what you put yourself through to be able to cope with that thing. And you've not even mentioned the wondrous achievements that you've made through just your natural abilities and your skills in terms of what you used to do as a job, and your composing and your musical instrument talents and things like that, that most people look at and consider to be pinnacles of things to reach as human beings. And then the story behind really what I guess drove you to those things, which is to desire excellence in yourself, to want to be as good as you could be, partially because you wanted that, but partially because you needed some escape, in my opinion, from some of the things that happened to you, and looking for ways of negating that in yourself to provide some sort of, not dream, not magic, but some sort of proof that you are the person that you are. You're a miracle. You're like amazing, to the fact that those things weren't going to stop you from doing the things that most people can't accomplish. And you've accomplished those things and far beyond, in terms of what you've then been able to do as a result of the person that you had become, the experience that you'd had, and your power to overcome that and become the vastly successful person that you were beyond that. And then to truly do this miracle on legs thing, excuse the pun, but literally a miracle on legs that sort of is now able to, like, I've seen you walk around and I wouldn't look at you and go, oh, this lady's obviously had a problem with one of her legs before. In fact, I think she almost had it chopped off. I wouldn't think that at all. Like, it's just amazing. I think that's testament number one to the sort of person that you are, the sort of attitude that you have, the sort of resilience that you have built into yourself, and your desire to succeed and not be controlled by the bad things that happen to you. But also, like you've mentioned about going through those things and getting to the other side and realizing where you're at on the other side. And then, like I've said with you before, like reaching through to put your hand through to welcome other people, to invite other people, to grab them by the scruff of the neck if you have to, and bring them through to the other side, because the other side is just so much more, like so much more. So yeah, thank you for sharing. I love listening to you, not because I like to listen to bad things that happen to people, but because I love to hear about the miracles that people are, whether that's from just being able to write a simple poem, from like one of the friends that I've made recently, to people who overcome rare diseases and continue with their lives, to people who've gone through persecution and abuse, and you come to the other side, and all of those people, just like you, maybe not quite in the same way because we're all unique, but just like you, they're reaching through to the other side to try and help other people in their own way. So yeah, thank you for everybody for what you do and who you are.
And here you are, Matt. Thank you so much.
I'm going to go on mute again.
Matt has really kind words, and I don't think I can like follow all of his kind words. I'm just gonna double them. How's that? um, but I did want to ask, to what, like, I guess you can't put like a percentage on this, but like, to what proportion do you believe that music has had an impact in your healing journey? And maybe like other factors that have had an impact, like how much did music have an impact on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I still question it in myself. Did I become as creative as I am in order to heal, or was I already creative and that has helped me heal? Because I do believe that creative energy is healing energy, 100%. I think it's helped me heal a lot. But when I went into school, I was kind of a little bit kind of shaking my fist, because I went into the path of least resistance, going into music. I actually went into music and art, but it was still the art was a little less, that was a little bit more me. The music was just like, everyone expected me to go into music, and I went into music because I was already doing music, but I wanted to go into veterinary science. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I didn't. It's still a healing art. And only later did I say, no, I really love I love my music. I think I just, at the time, it was the, late teens, kind of not wanting to be told what to do. I still don't love to be told what to do. Let's be honest. I think the music is something that I can just sink into, and sometimes I pour my whole soul into writing it, and creating an atmosphere for others, but is it also for myself? Sure. There are some pieces of music that I just get into, and I'll just cry. Yeah, it's just, they're just so poignant to me. And there's other music, it doesn't, I'm extremely highly classically trained, but there's some music that's like hip hop that I completely identify with and really, can listen to over and over again because of what it's saying. There's so much, it's really, it's an environment. It creates an environment and it creates vibrations that are intrinsic to our bodies and our souls. So yeah, which came first, I don't know, but I do think that it's had a big part.
Yeah, we're bioenergetic crystalline water matrix beings. So the music is within you and, healing you. And it's just, yeah, which came first? Does it necessarily have to be that one came first, or that they're just intrinsically integrated as part of our being?
Yeah. I just keep asking sometimes what might have come first, because it's just an interesting, thing to bring up so that, other people can ponder it too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of our nature as well.
Yeah. Matt, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. I'm not creative at all. Like I don't know, like I can't even, well, I can listen to music and appreciate good music, and I'll listen to it for a long time, but you wouldn't even want to listen to me tapping my foot on the floor because it's so bad. Like I mentioned Aubrey and her art earlier. Like I appreciate that when something looks beautiful as well, but try and draw it, try and even think what that looks like. No.
Well,
That just
creation,
doesn't
Matt,
happen.
though, creation is I'm just going to counter you for a moment. Creation is when you create something. So you have created a social network, and it is a concept that's coming to fruition, and it wouldn't come to fruition had you not created it. That is creativity. You're not working for someone else who created this. You're not implementing what they're telling you to do. You are the creator. That's being creative. Just because some people are said to be creative who play music and who never write it, who never play anything but what they see on the page. And how are they any more creative than you, who have conceived and brought to fruition this network?
Maybe. I don't see that as very creative. I just see that as opening the door for people like you and everybody else to bring their magic. Because like I say, I can see it, I can hear it, I can watch it. I don't know, you look at people and the things that they do, whether it's people who you are, all three of you, in some way, shape or form related to helping people with their mental health, whether that's through coaching or through their art or through talking to them and helping them understand their feelings and what have you. I can't even describe that, let alone do it justice. But like, my view is that if I can help other people to do those things, if I can open that door for that to happen, and I get to see some of those beautiful things and listen to some of the wonderful sounds, music See, I can't even say the words, let alone do it. And then you've got things like architecture and all sorts of magic that everybody else can do. I just sit back and go, wow, wow. The only thing that I want to do is like be able to see it properly, and that's my selfish desire, is like get my eyesight back. If I can help other people do that, then yeah, I'll have created something worthwhile. In the meantime, everybody else, if I can help them to do something, so and I can see that and experience it and love it and enjoy it.
I think the argument could be made that nobody is creative, right? That like it really
Your art
depends
isn't
on
that bad.
their-
Your art
Let me
is
get to my point.
Okay, sorry.
So what I was gonna say is that if well, this is how I believe, right? Is that like we're channeling the divine energy, and the more that we can get out of our own way, the more that we can channel the divine creativity to you know, really enhance our talents. And like each of us have our own unique talents. And so, you know, there are architects with their own unique talents, and, you know, people who have, you know, creativity, like to be able to connect different people, or being able to like utilize tools in such a way to be able to enhance the way that things are done. Like there's just so many different ways that people are individually talented, and the more that they can get out of their own way and kind of like step away from that like self-doubt, the more that they can just allow that divine energy to flow through them, so that can like heal the world, you know. And so like if you think of it that way, like you may even argue that nobody's creative or everybody is creative, you know, just depending on which direction that you look at it from. But we all, you know, we all have our unique talents. This is my reality.
Absolutely. That's why I'm here, you know, saying this. It's not to say, you know, hey, I've had this crappy life, you know, or anything. It's not to say, hey, I've had this crappy life and I can get over it. It's to say, hey, you know, we can all do this. We can all do this thing. And just because we have this energy within us and we have this focus within us. And I have this dog who is saying she wants to go somewhere else. Don't you? Yeah. Who's gonna mush?
Hi, Mochi. Max wants to go somewhere else too.
Yeah. He's like, get
Okay.
off the
You've got a dog.
call."
You've got a dog. You've got a baby. I've got a Christmas tree.
And you
But most
can-
of the time the lights are on, but when I switch it off, I save the world. Thank
that's right. And give it water and love, and
Plants have healing energies too.
that's right. We all love that tree. It's gonna be the best tree ever.
Did anyone else see the little boy pop in?
I saw you do the magic trick with getting a cup from the middle of the air. See, and you said that nobody's creative. That's creativity right there. You just put your hand up, this drink here, and now you're drinking it. That's ultimate creativity to me.
Yeah, and I disappeared the baby at the same time, right?
I didn't even see that. See, that's magic that's happening, and I'm not even seeing it.
Well, the baby's no longer here, so
Yeah, it disappeared.
Yikes.
See, this is the best treatment, though. Yeah, smiling, laughing,
And laughter.
friendship. Yeah.
Thank you
Oh.
all. Thank you, Lydia, so much, so much. Looking forward to more spreading joy, healing, and love, creating a better world together as happier, healthier humans. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you all. I really appreciate you coming. And thank you for letting me record you and record me and for
It's recorded.
spread this message.
Yes. See you soon.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to everyone.
Bye. More